But this idea of the total vanity of life is not altogether an inevitable consequence of the supracosmic theory of existence. In the Vedanta of the Upanishads, the becoming of Brahman is accepted as a reality. There is room, therefore, for a truth of the becoming. There is in that truth a right law of life, a permissible satisfaction of the hedonistic element in our being, its delight of temporal existence, an effective utilization of its practical energy, of the executive force of consciousness in it, but the truth and law of its temporal becoming, once fulfilled, the soul has to turn back to its final self realization. For its natural highest fulfillment is a release, a liberation into its original being. Shilpa and Sumki, please mute. Na? There is disturbance.
Yeah, I cannot mute either. Please mute me.
Okay, okay. A liberation into its original being, its eternal self, its timeless reality. There is a circle of becoming, starting from eternal being and ending in it, or from the point of view of the Supreme as a personal or superpersonal reality, there is a temporary play, a game of becoming and living in the universe. Here, evidently, there is no other significance of life than the will of the being to become, the will of consciousness, and the urge of its force towards becoming, its delight of becoming. For the individual, when that is withdrawn from him or fulfilled in him and no longer active, the becoming ceases. But otherwise, the universe persists as always, comes back into manifestation because the will to become is eternal and must be so, since it is the inherent will of an eternal existence. It may be said that one defect in this view of things is the absence of any fundamental reality of the individual, of any abiding value and significance of his natural or his spiritual activity. But it can be replied that this demand for a permanent personal significance, for a personal eternity, is an error of our ignorant surface consciousness. The individual is a temporary becoming of the being, and that is a quite sufficient value and significance. It may be added that in a pure or any absolute existence, there can be no values and significances. In the universe, values exist and are indispensable, but only as relative and temporary buildings. There can be no absolute values, no eternal and self-existent significances in a time structure. This sounds conclusive enough, and it seems that nothing more can be said about the matter. And yet, the question remains over. For the stress on our individual being, the demand on it, the value put on individual perfection and salvation is too great to be dismissed as a device for a minor operation, the coiling and uncoiling of an insignificant spiral amid the vast circlings of eternals becoming in the universe.
Very interesting para. Srirendra has told us that we have got 4 basic theories. The first theory he is discussing is a supracosmic. The supracosmic means the supracosmic is the only reality, whatever it be. It may be the Shunyam, it may be the Satchidananda. In the Buddhism, it is Shunyam. In the Vedanta, it is Satchidananda. So, there are small variations. But basically, the main thing common to all of them is that the world is unreal. Okay? This is the main thing. The world is unreal and the supracosmic is the only reality. So now he is discussing, he has already discussed the extreme form in Buddhism and Mayavada. That the world has no value at all and it's absolutely an illusion. So you have to go to the higher level, which is the reality. Now he is saying that there can be a slight variation of the theme and he's bringing in Vedanta. Okay? So we'll go into that. And normally, in the extreme form, the existence in the world has absolutely no meaning. And that's what he uses the word total vanity of life. There is no purpose in that. Okay? So this is what he is saying, and he's discussing that now. So he says, But this idea of the total vanity of life is not altogether an inevitable consequence of the supra-cosmic theory of existence. He is bringing in now Vedanta. That means to say, in Vedanta, the world is not absolutely useless or anything, okay? Although you have to go to the higher level of consciousness, highest level, to get the reality, okay? So then what is the meaning of the word? It is half real, okay? As Shankara says very clearly, it is a shadow reality. It's a dependent reality. It's not the ultimate reality. So there is some amount of significance to the world existence. But Shyamda will discuss that also is not sufficiently satisfactory enough. We will discuss that. Actually, now I go with each sentence. But this idea of the total vanity of life is not altogether an inevitable consequence of the supra-cosmic theory of existence. In the Vedanta of the Upanishads, okay, not the, mind you, he is hearing the word Upanishads because in the Vedanta of the Gita, it is different. Okay? Why? Because if you remember, the Gita says that the one who is realized must come down into the physical world and he must do, they must try to help the others. Okay? Loka Sangranaartham and also Loka Hite Rata. You have to be engaged in the good of the world. So very clearly, Shyamda is talking of the Vedanta, not of the Gita, but of the Upanishads. Okay, that's why it's so important for him to say that. These variations are all, many variations are there in the Vedanta. There are three elements which constitute Vedanta. Even Shyamda still is Vedanta, but with a difference. So, in the Upanishads, he is discussing now. Then afterwards, he will discuss the Gitas. He will not discuss, but we can discuss the Gitas theory of the physical world being not unreal at all, but quite real, although it's a field of suffering and limitation and imperfection. And finally, Shyamda's idea is that even this limitation and imperfection is not permanent. Okay? So these are three different theories of the Vedanta. So, in the Vedanta of the Upanishads, the becoming of Brahman is accepted as a reality. The becoming of the Brahman, he means the physical world. The becoming is the physical world, and not only the physical world, but a mental world also. Right? Matter, life, and mind. That is the field of the becoming, because there is movement. Becoming means movement. If you go above that, then there is no movement. There is only immutability. Okay? So, the becoming of Brahman is accepted as a reality. There is room, therefore, for a truth of the becoming. The world is there is a truth to it. There is, in that truth, a right law of life, a permissible satisfaction of the hedonistic element of our being, its delight of total temporal existence, an effective utilization of its practical energy, of the executive force of consciousness in it. So, he has told us what would be the purpose of the physical world. There is room, therefore, for a truth of the becoming. What are those truths? There is in that truth a right law of life. Okay? Now, this is discussed in the Life Divine. He said that even if you believe that there is no meaning in the physical world, because the materialist says that there is no meaning in life. You just have one life and then you die, finish, end of the story. So Sridhar is saying that even a materialist can have a right law of life. He's saying that you live not for yourself alone, but I am talking of the Life Divine, by the way. He says that even a materialist can think that live for the others. Little nobility should come into your life. Not absolutely egoistic, only for yourself, but you do for others, be kind, be compassionate, and that gives a little value to life. Although ultimately the life has no value, but you can make it little more beautiful, little more meaningful by being kind to others and by helping others. That's what I mean by a right law of life. You can see the reality of this because even those who are very materialistic, okay, they do sometimes do charity works and they help others. They bring a little more nobility into their life. That's what I mean by there is in that truth a right law of life. Live for others, not for yourself alone. A permissible satisfaction of the hedonistic element in our being. Okay? In all human beings, there is the seeking for pleasure. Okay? Even if that pleasure is imperfect, there is some meaning in it. It's not absolutely a bland, meaningless life. Then enjoyment is a part of life. That's what is what here. Then it's delight of temporal existence. Okay? Even a materialist can take delight in life. Okay? So although he says that ultimately there is no value in life in the world, he can take a delight in it. All minor elements, but they gives a little more meaning to the existence on earth. An effective utilization of its practical energy. Now, this is science. An effective utilization of its practical energy, that's what science is doing. So there is some meaning in it. They have discovered the solution to diseases. They have a solution to the conquest of time and space. Okay, they have invented the mobile and the computer. All these things are there is some effective utilization of practical energy. Then, of the executive force of consciousness in it. Okay, whatever consciousness is there and Shakti is there, use that. So it gives a little bit of meaning to life. Ultimately, there may be no meaning, but still there is some partial meaning. Now, but the truth and law of its temporal becoming, once fulfilled, the soul has to turn back to its final self-realization for its natural highest fulfillment is a release, a liberation into its original being, its eternal self, its timeless reality. So, the Vedanta is saying, ultimately you have to go to the supracosmic. But even when you are here, partly there is some meaning in life. It's not absolutely meaningless. Okay? So they were saying. Okay? So there is a temporal play. No, sorry, I'll read the other one first. There is a circle of becoming. So now he's explaining. There is a circle of becoming. Circle of becoming, you start from the divine, come down into the physical world, struggle, and finally find out the truth of your being by yogic practice, and you go back to where you came from. That's a circle. Beginning from the top, coming to the bottom, and going up to the end again at the top. That's a circle. The circle of becoming, starting from eternal being at the highest level, supracosmic, and ending in it. Coming down and ending in it. There is a circle. So, there is the Upanishadic theory. Or, from the point of view of the Supreme, as a personal or super-personal reality, there is a temporal play, a game of becoming and living in the universe. So, if you speak about from the God's, the supracosmic point of view, there is a becoming and a living in the universe. Okay? So, there is some meaning to it. What that meaning is, we will see later on. Here, evidently, there is no other significance of life than the will of the being to become. Okay? So, we may not understand it, but it is, if you think of it in that way, there is a, why is the physical world created? Swami is discussing and he's saying his language is a little complicated, but what his meaning is that, okay, the Upanishad is saying that there is a reality of the physical world, but ultimately you have to go up. Okay? There is no permanent meaning in the physical world. You have to go up after living your life here. So, Swami is saying, here evidently, there is no other significance of life than the will of the being to become. Okay? So, the divine wants to manifest himself and is manifesting. It raises many questions, but those questions will be dealt with later on. Okay? The will of consciousness and the urge of its force towards becoming, its delight of becoming. Okay. Now he's saying that the only purpose of the creation, the manifestation, is to enjoy the creation, to enjoy the world, Leela, the theory of the Leela. Okay. So it's delight of becoming. So that would be the only meaning, but from the divine point of view, not the individual point of view. That's why Sri is using the words supreme as a personal or super-personal reality. From the super-personal reality, there is a meaning in life. It is my playground. The divine is saying, that is my playground. I am playing, I am creating, and I am enjoying. So there is some meaning from God's point of view. But from the personal point of view, what he is saying is supreme as a person. Now, supreme as a person is very interesting. 3 words or 4 words, supreme as a personal. That one word will replace it, individual. The individual is the supreme to begin with, but it becomes personal. He has an individuality. So from that point of view, ultimately the world has no meaning. But from the divine point of view, there is a meaning. It's my playground. Okay. That's what he's saying. There is a temporary play, a game of becoming and living in the universe. Here evidently, there is no other significance of life than the will of the being to become, the will of consciousness, and the earth of its force towards becoming. Now he is explaining why. It's delight of becoming. The divine is enjoying what it is manifesting. For the individual, when that is withdrawn from him or fulfilled in him or no longer active, the becoming ceases. Okay? Now he has discussed from God's point of view. Now he is discussing from the individual point of view. That's it. You can see the word supreme as a personal or super-personal reality. The super-personal reality is the divine. Okay? That he has discussed. Now he is saying, but from the individual point of view, okay, once that game is done, and how can that be done? That is, for the individual, when that is withdrawn from him, what is withdrawn from him? Existence in the physical world with physical death, or fulfilled in him and no longer active. It can either be fulfilled as in the yogin and the ascetic. He is fulfilling his life here and he is escaping, going away from it. That is withdrawn from him or fulfilled from him. Okay? What does the first one mean? When that is withdrawn from him, he finds no meaning in the physical world. Okay, so he withdraws from it. That's ascetic. Or if you have fulfilled your life here and no longer active, the becoming ceases. But otherwise, the universe persists or always comes back into manifestation. So for the individual, in this supracosmic theory, in the Vedantic theory, the world has no more meaning for you when you go into liberation. That's what he's saying. Okay. And he is explaining why. So, but once the individual has gone away, does it mean that the universe ends for everybody? He's saying no. But otherwise, the universe persists or always comes back into manifestation because the will to become is eternal. Whose will? The superpersonal reality. God's will to become is eternal and must be so, since it is the inherent will of an eternal existence. Okay? So it may be said, now this is one argument again being given, it may be said that one defect in this view of things is the absence of any fundamental reality of the individual. This is a criticism again. This criticism can be made against Mayavada, it can be made against even the Buddhists, and in the case of Mayavada and Buddhists, the criticism is absolutely valid. But in the Vedanta, the criticism can be answered in different ways. Okay? It is semi-criticism. That's why he's saying it may be said of the individual. There is the absence of any fundamental reality of the individual, of any abiding value and significance of his natural or his spiritual activity. Natural is body-mind life. The activity of his body-mind life, there is no ultimate reality because it goes away. And the body-mind life disappears. So there is no meaning to it. or his spiritual activity. If he has realized who he is, his body-mind life drops away and he goes away into the higher planes of consciousness. So the physical world ultimately, even if it has got a temporary usefulness, is ultimately worthless and meaningless. Now, the counter argument to this defect that we are saying, but it can be replied, this typically first he brings up a defect and then he brings a counter argument. Now he's bringing a counter argument against the defect that can be given to the Buddhistic and the Upanishadic view. Okay? But it can be replied that this demand for a permanent personal significance, for a personal eternity, is an error of our ignorant selfish consciousness. The individual is a temporary becoming of the being, and that is a quite sufficient value and significance. It may not have a full significance, but there is a meaning to it. You come down, you struggle, you realize who you are, and you go back to where you came from. Okay? And that is a quite sufficient value and significance. Again, now he is counter-arguing against this whole argument. It may be added that in a pure and absolute existence, there can be no values and significances. The absolute pure existence of the highest level, he is discussing the supracosmic view, remember. So he is saying that that which is one is the only reality. So how can there be any value in that which is the multiple or dual? There can be no meaning. So all your arguments are meaningless. That's what he is saying. It may be added that in a pure or an absolute existence, there is only oneness. There can be no values and significances. In the universe, values exist and are indispensable, but only as relative and temporary buildings. Now, if you wonder what these values are, he has discussed this also in Life Divine. First of all, there is the value of the senses. You see the physical world through your senses. These are the life values. Then you go to the mind, and the mind values now start coming in, and it changes your view of life. Okay? So, I'll give you an example of what I mean by values. So, first of all, I am living in a world with sense values. I see the sun rising every day, and I think that the sun is rising. It's my sense knowledge, and that's a sense value. But as soon as I start going to the mind starts looking at it with a slightly different attitude than the senses, and I realize that the sun is not at all moving. It is my illusion of my senses. So the earth is going round, but not the sun. Therefore, you have the mental values which are replacing the sense values. Okay? That's what it means by values. Okay? Then, when you make your mind silent and go even beyond the mind, then again values change. So in other words, what are the values? Your way of seeing and understanding and living things. That's the values. So that's what Shambhavi is saying. He used the word value in this sense. Okay? It may be added that in pure and absolute existence, there can be no values and significances. If you think that the supracosmic is the only reality. But if you say that no, there is a meaning and a reality even to the duality in the multiplicity, then your view changes. Okay? He is discussing only that. It may be added that in a pure or absolute existence, there can be no values and significance. In the universe, values exist and are indispensable, but only as relative and temporary buildings. I just now gave you examples. There can be no absolute values, no eternal and self-existent significances in a time structure. The time structure in the physical world. Time and space exist only in the physical world, in the level 1. There is no time and no space in level 2. Okay? So, this sounds conclusive enough, and it seems that nothing more can be said about the matter. And yet, the question remains open. Now, he is bringing in his own. Okay? So, you are saying the Upanishad is saying the world is not absolutely unreal. There is some reality to it. And that reality is you can live in a very noble manner, you can live in a with enjoyment, you can also live for others without selfishness. So these things are sufficiently valued. That's what they say. And yet Sri Aurobindo says he now raises an objection against this value, these things also. And yet the question remains open. And what is that question? Ultimately, the soul is coming down from high and going back again. So why should he do that? What is the meaning? He can remain there only always. Okay. So that is what you have to explain why you have to come down. And that is where Sri Aurobindo comes in. It is like, as I like to say, okay, it's very similar to one day I sit in a car and go to Madras. I go to Chennai and I come back without doing any work. So what was the meaning of my having gone to Chennai? Absolutely no meaning at all. Okay? I need not have gone there at all. But if I go there and do some work, okay, then my trip to Chennai has some meaning. So if the soul comes down to the physical world and does something, there's a meaning to it. Okay? But if it doesn't do anything, it just goes back to where it came from. What is the point? That's what Sri Aurobindo is saying. And yet the question remains open. For, he's explaining, for the stress of our individual being, the demand on it, the value put on individual perfection and salvation is too great to be dismissed as a device for a minor operation. Okay? The coiling and the uncoiling of an insignificant spiral amidst the vast circlings of the eternal becoming in the universe. What he's saying is that you have to explain if the divine has made this world and you just come and go back into it and find no meaning in it, then it makes no sense. The world need not have been created. But when the world has been created, there must be some meaning to it. So the Upanishad theory is not fully satisfactory. And that is where Sri Aurobindo comes in and says, don't think that the physical world is even ultimately unreal. It will ultimately prove to be real by the evolution. There is a purpose in the manifestation, and the divine is slowly revealing himself. So that is the fourth theory of existence. Okay? That's what he is hinting at here. Now he comes to the second theory, okay? The cosmic terrestrial. So which is the cosmic terrestrial? The liberation, the Indian idea of liberation of the soul. That's the theory. The first one theory was supracosmic theory, is the Buddhism and Mayavada, and to a certain extent also the Upanishads. Now he is talking of the cosmic terrestrial. So we have got 10 minutes or even 9 minutes now, but we can go through it. The cosmic terrestrial view. There is a second theory he is going to discuss. Okay? So who will read? One can read. So, Sunki, will you read? Okay, go ahead. Oh, you said your mic is not working.
I can read it now.
Okay, go ahead, read.
Wait a second. Let me connect
The cosmic terrestrial.
the cosmic terrestrial, which we may take next as the exact opposite of the supracosmic, considers cosmic existence as real. It goes farther and accepts it as the only reality, and its view is confined ordinarily to life in the material universe. God, if God exists, is an eternal becoming, or if God does not exist, then nature, whatever view we may take of nature, whether we regard it as a playable force with matter, or a great cosmic life, or even admit a universal impersonal mind in life and matter, is a perennial becoming. Earth is a field, or it is one of the temporary fields. Man is the highest possible form, or only one of the different forms of the becoming. Man individually may be altogether mortal. Mankind also may survive only for a certain short period of the Earth existence. Earth itself may bear life only for a rather longer period of its duration in the solar system, that system may itself one day come to an end, or at least cease to be an active or proactive factor in the becoming. The universe we live in may itself dissolve or contract again into the seed state of its energy. But the principle of becoming is eternal, or at least as eternal as anything can be in the obscure ambiguity of existence. It is indeed possible to suppose a persistence of man, the individual, as a psychic entity in time, a continuous terrestrial or cosmic souling or reincarnation without any afterlife or other life elsewhere. In that case, one may either suppose an ideal of constantly increasing perfection, or approach to perfection, or a growth towards an enduring felicity somewhere in the universe as an aim of this endless becoming. But in an extreme terrestrial view, this is with difficulty tenable. Certain speculations of human thought have tended in this direction, but they have not taken a substantial body. A perpetual persistence in the becoming is usually associated with the acceptance of a greater supra-terrestrial existence.
So, he is discussing the materialistic theory. But there also there are many gradations. Okay, that's an interesting thing. The cosmic terrestrial view is a materialistic. Okay. So, we have got 6 minutes. I'll try and we'll go through it. Okay. The cosmic terrestrial view, which we may take next, the second one, as the exact opposite of the supracosmic, considers cosmic existence as real. Okay. It goes farther and accepts it as the only reality. So therefore, it's talking of materialism. And its view is confined ordinarily to life in the material universe, not in the vital world and the mental world. Okay. God, if God exists, is an eternal becoming. Or if God does not exist, then nature. Okay. Both are included in the materialistic view. Okay. It's not a materialistic view, it's a cosmic terrestrial view. So only nature exists in the material view, but you may be materialistic in the sense that maybe God is there, but he is not here. Okay, in that sense. If God does not exist, then nature, whatever view we may take of nature, whether we regard it as a play of forces matter, or a great cosmic life, or even admit a universal impersonal mind in life and matter. So in other words, many small variations are possible in this theory. Okay. Earth is a field, or it is one of the temporary fields. Now that's an interesting addition. Earth is a field, or maybe it's one of the temporary fields. In other words, there's a thing saying that the divine has created this cosmos, but it's only one of a millionth cosmoses that he could have created. So don't think that this is the only way he could have created. He can create anything else, and he may have also created somewhere else. Okay, so that's what he's meaning. The earth is a field, or it is one of the temporary fields. Man is the highest possible form, or only one of the temporary forms of the becoming. Okay? Temporary forms. Man individually may be altogether mortal. Mankind also may survive only for a certain short period of the Earth's existence. This is what many scientists also think, that the world will disappear. The sun will disappear after 1 million years, and nothing can survive in the universe without the sun. So therefore, everything will die out. Okay. That's also a theory. Mankind also may survive only for a certain short period of the Earth's existence. Earth itself may bear life only for a rather longer period of its duration in the solar system. That system may itself one day come to an end, or at least cease to be an active or productive factor in the becoming. The universe we live in may itself dissolve or contract again into the seed state of its energy. This is again another theory, that the universe is an expansion. So it is going back again to where it started from. It's like the cosmic, the Big Bang theory in science also says that. It all started from one small thing and it is expanding, expanding, expanding. The expanding universe. So 14 billion years ago, the Earth started from a small dot of force and it is expanding, expanding, expanding. The Big Bang theory is based on the fact that the movement of this in the solar system, all these stars are moving away faster and faster and faster. So if you calculate the velocity and the increasing velocity, then you can go backwards and say that 14 billion years ago, the world started. Okay, but these are all mental solutions. Now, it is indeed possible to suppose the persistence of man and individual as a psychic entity in time. Okay? A continuous terrestrial or cosmic ensouling or reincarnation without any afterlife or other life. There is the Christian theory and the Islamic theory. You have one life only. Okay? Without any afterlife or other life elsewhere. In that case, one may either suppose an ideal of constantly increasing perfection or approach to perfection or a growth towards an enduring felicity somewhere in the universe as the aim of this endless becoming. But in an extreme terrestrial view, this is with difficulty tenable. Extreme terrestrial view. Only matter is real. The other thing that he has told us is variations of this terrestrial view. Certain speculations of human thought have tended in that direction, but they have not taken a sufficient substantial body. The materialistic theory is slowly breaking down. A perpetual persistence in the becoming is usually associated with the acceptance of a greater supra-terrestrial existence. Normally, in the becoming, you do, and now there's enough proof because people are, after death, they are coming back and saying that we had an afterlife. So that's what he's saying. So we stop here today, and if necessary, we will do this again next week and look into it in detail. So it's 8:40 now, so I'm stopping today. So, au revoir, everybody. We are still in it. You can see that
Thank you, Rangata.
he's taking up each theory and discussing all the variations in them. Au revoir, everybody. Have a nice day.
Thank you, Rangata.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Rangata.
Rangata.
I'm closing.
Thank you.
Okay.